We are live.
Wawan moisar shalay ranan kawan basastat ka phone partat. I'm a student teacher of the math teacher, YAANAN. So this question and answers class will be a continuation from last week. I know we wanted to continue reading the journey. We didn't get to finish that due to time, so I'm just going to continue from that reading. And if there's any questions that need to be asked, the student teacher, Dentut, Kofi, Rayay will come and continue the class. Wawe? So that means okay for an Arabic language for all who don't know. So, Tawakum. So, Wawe. This is the journey given to us by YAANAN. So he says, after 76 trillion years of existence, the oldest of the three suns, Sabat Kuh, which means Sirius C. Sabat Kuh is Sirius C in our ancient language, Sabaik. You all can say it with me. Sabat Kuh.
Sabat Kuh.
Was burning out as all suns do in time. It is called the B, Pazahar. Pazahar was collapsing and its 8 planets were in danger. This solar system of 8 planets was oversaw by Pa-Munthar, the overseer Ptah, and he knew all those who resided on the 8 planets, they must be evacuated. Some were relocated to other solar systems of Sirius A, the one inhabited by the simians and the other furred beings, and some were relocated to the other solar systems of Sirius B, the one inhabited by Mutganu, or reptilians, who themselves later came to Earth, yet the sirens of the planet Makab Merak, the green one, chose to be relocated to Masa Kab Nasak. So Masa, if you do your chants, who could tell me what Masa means? You chant. Tell. See, I should have asked somebody else, but tell. So, and our chants, you hear that we say Masa, so which means Orion. So, Masa Kab Nasak, Orion star system, and arrived at its belt, Hazan, and of its 3 sons called Al-Nilam, dwelling inside Orion, and then they lived for many thousands of years, and when the right time came upon them, it was time to transport some DNA cells from Orion to Ishara, Tiamat, Ta'ah. So, who can tell me what is another name? What is the other name that we know for Tiamat or Ishara?
Eridu?
Say it again.
Eridu?
But what is that? What is that? What does Tiamat mean?
What does it mean?
Okay.
That's name for Earth.
So yes, that's another name for Earth. So Bob was explaining that we were transported from Orion to Ishara, Tiamat. So when we hear these different names, it's just attributes to explain planet Earth. So he says Taha, Earth, and the Mukrashu, dolphins from Sirius B, were chosen being a water planet. So being the fact that the dolphins are naturally water creatures, it would only make sense for Planetaro to transport ourselves using a water creature. Right? So cells were removed from 24 Moirak Lene Pamik Kab Moirak and frozen in an egg-shaped kabad craft inside of the dolphin. Prokaryotic cells of both female and male probe of the east. The kabad craft was designed to dissolve on impact.
Wait, back and forth now, huh?
Okay. So again, so the craft was designed to dissolve on impact into the Mayak Ocean, and the dolphin was to protect the cells in their own bodies as the cells split and grew into Mutganu, sirens, and Mutganu, mermen. This was before the continents of Earth were separated in one landmass, and this was the landmass called Ganoa. So again, before Africa was known as Africa, or many of the other names they give us, Africa was known as Ganoa. So from the west of America, which included South America and all the small islands with all parts of East Africa, that is also Morocco, now over and up to Syria, across to Iran, Afghanistan, and around and down to India. Madagascar and all in this one landmass before the continental drift, and it was called Magnan, Ganawa, Nupu. So who's heard of Nupu? Who's heard of, within studying the scrolls, who's heard of Nupu, also known as the Green Zone? Tua. So I got some show of hands while we're, okay. Tua. So Nupu was the green zone where we resided as Africans, which was, it was called Nupu on one side, which is the green zone, where we resided, and all the vegetation was alive. That's where we grew. We didn't have any diseases, no disturbances. Everything on that side of the planet was alive. Okay.
What is it called again?
Nupu, or the green zone tour.
Green zone.
Yes. So there's two sides to that, but the brother will explain shortly. In time, a great tsunami cast many of them from the deep onto land, some as far as Ovanko swamps located in Botswana, while some others remained in the deep and others came out to the dry land and of then very forested Egg Island, the South Pole called Antarctic Circle, 5,400,000 miles. And there many lived before crossing over to South Africa. When the planet shifted and was covered by an ice shelf, it shifted from its 24-degree axis to its current 23.5-degree axis. These were of two germs, the males, the black germ, and the females, the brown germ, of the sands or musnanu. The original skin hue was turquoise, iridescent. Over time, the sun's rays and diet changed their skin tone, the skin hue. The males were 5 feet 4 inches, and the females were 4 feet 5 inches. One group of them traveled north following the Nile River to Sudan, then crossed eastward into what is now Arabia, and spread in all directions, northward and southward. So, I'm at this moment, and we're going to have the Zamal Dentut take over. If you have any questions.
Rahubat.
Rahubat.
All right, so are there any questions, rereads?
Good question. It said when the ice, how did the ice, before it tilted to 23 degrees, 23 and a half degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So, did the pole shifts move, or how did it get to be cold? Because everything was at one point, everything was tropical. So how did that ice get at the bottom to make that tilt?
Well, okay, so the master said that when the planet shifted, it was on the 24-degree axis. And when it shifted to 23.5-degree axis, that's when the ice shelf started to cover those areas of Antarctica.
Okay, so when it shifted, I'm trying to understand how it shifted. Was it because Nibiru?
You trying to? No, that's a different event that took place. Okay. So if you go back, for those, how many of y'all read the Holy Tablets? Familiar with the Holy Tablets? Okay. So in the Holy Tablets, the master teacher talked about how, Nibiru and how they collided into Maldek, right? This event is talking about how the planet originally used to be 48,000 miles. After the Nibiru incident, then it was shortened to 24,000 miles. Right. Okay? But it still, at this time, wasn't dealing with the change of the degree of the axis yet. The degree came when the meteorite was sent and actually tilted the planet to kill off the dinosaurs.
Okay, see,
that's where that point comes in. All right? So I'm going to just read a little bit here because it goes to your point. He says here that when the planet shifted and was covered by an ice shelf, shifted from its 24-degree axis to its current 23.5-degree axis, there were two germs, right? So you had the males and the feminine, right? The males and the females, masculine and feminine. Baba says that you had the black germ, that was the males, and then you had the brown germ, and that was the females of the Sans people. And their original essence was turquoise, iridescent. After the shift is when their tone or their skin color, the hue actually changed from that color down to brown due to the different oxidation that was going on in the atmosphere. So this right here is talking about how it's skipping millions of years from the incident that happened on Nibiru, all the way down to the waters, and then us migrating onto land. All of those are different time periods where we started to morph into different types of beings on the planet. I thought I saw a couple of hands go up. Yes?
Who were the extraterrestrials that touched down in Antarctica?
The Riskians.
Okay.
Yeah, Parazaku. So if you go, have you read the book called Intelligent Design?
Mm-hmm.
So in Intelligent Design, Baba drew a map, and it'll say extraterrestrial migrations or alien visits, and it shows a whole map of all the migratory patterns from the Sans people all the way up into different territories in which extraterrestrial came down in different areas, for which would be the South Europe, India, Asia, Madagascar, Sudan, Ethiopia. The whole map is talking about the different migration patterns that the Sans people took, and then what happened when extraterrestrials came down and then modified their DNA to make subraces.
Okay.
So the first part was Antarctica. I'll write on the board because there's like a whole list of each one. But
Okay.
Antarctica is where you have the Riskians
That's
first, what they call Egg Island. And this is at a time when the whole entire landmass was one.
Right.
So when you look at it, it was just called Ganawa. Ganawa was the original name of the whole landmass, and Egg Island was that part, which we know now as Antarctica. The location of Antarctica today was where Egg Island was at, and it was a fertile land. There was no snow and ice or the ice shelf covering it like it is now. And you're talking about that millions of years ago. Mm-hmm.
So what, when, where, how is Pangea fit into this? Is that just another name for Ganawa?
Pangea is another name for Ganawa, but it's their name
It's their
trying
name.
to cover. It's like, okay, we called it Ganawa, but we called it Ganawa for a reason,
Right.
because it meant an enclosure.
Right.
Now, when they say Pangea, Pangea just means like across, and then Gea means earth, like all across earth, the one landmass. So yeah, it's pretty much the same. It's the same thing, just
So
by a different name.
So let me ask you this. So
Mhm.
you know that the Riskians touched down in Antarctica. Who touched down in Africa, let's say? Like, seeded the Sans people.
Okay, let me go back a little bit.
Okay.
So, have you read the scroll called the Nine?
I'm not sure if I have that one.
So there's two scrolls you got to get, right? Get Intelligent Design,
That one I got.
and then get the 9 scroll, right? So if you go into Intelligent Design, it goes directly into the Nun Project. Now remember the Nun
Right.
Project and the Dolphin Project and how
Right.
it was seeding the waters? We were
Right.
talking about this last week,
Right.
right? So what we have to understand is that there's a timeline that the Master Teacher is giving us.
I gotta look for
So
this.
that timeline goes back 24 million years ago. That's when we were seeded in the waters. That's going to the waters as prokaryotic cells. That's the dolphins carrying our genetics inside of the waters.
Okay, back up. Say it again.
Yeah, 24 million years.
Right.
You'll see that in the 9 scroll. Let's say we seeded the waters that's of the Indian Ocean with our seed.
Right.
That's prokaryotic cells.
Okay. Oh,
Eggs.
I see.
Egg cells that were planted inside of the dolphin.
Right.
Dolphins were put into the sea, and then the dolphin was like a surrogate mother that took care of the eggs in the waters.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So from that, those eggs, those cells went from one cellular organisms, right? Your amoeba, bacteria, fungi,
Right.
all of that was germinating in the waters.
Right.
The dolphins took care of that, and then they slowly and gradually expanded to what you know as sirens or mermaids and
Right.
mermen, or what you call your mudgantatu, the feminine aquatic beings, and your mudganu. Those are your masculine aquatic beings. So in Tamaray, you knew those beings as the Ogdoads,
Right.
the 8 pairs, right? And the 8 pairs, when you look at the names, the acronym of the names, you'll see it as this. A is for Amun and Amuntat. N is for Nun, Nuntat. Then you have Kak. Kaktat.
Too strong.
And then you have Hat.
Getting away with those spirits. Got a lot of that going on. You trying to say something.
Y'all see this?
Yeah.
So now, ANKH represents the Ankh. It creates the acronym of the Ankh. The Ankh is your Ogdoads. Amun, Amuntat, Nun and Nuntat, Kak and Kaktat, Hat and Hattat. They all represent life, right? Life is in the water. Wherever there's water, there's life. And where there's life, there's intelligence. Y'all follow? So, in the Black Book, the Master Teacher's talking about in the Sacred Records of Atumre that when we see it, right? When we see it, you're looking at it as 8 pairs altogether. But it was really 4 generations in between each pair.
4 generations?
4 generations in between each pair. All right? So that means that there was a generation of Amun, there was a generation of Nun, there was a generation of Kek, and there was a generation of Het and Hetet in the waters, which summed up to be 800 years. These are your reptilian or mermaid or aquatic beings in the waters. These are the beings that evolved from that dolphin project that you were talking about. Okay. Just to kind of give you the timeline. So then after millions of years in the waters, that's when we were thrown on land from a tsunami. And the first place that we ended up in was what you call your Okavango swamps. Okavango swamps in Botswana. That's that rich water, right? Of those swamps is where we stayed at once coming out of out of the waters. You follow me? So it wasn't like we just went straight from water onto land and then started to walk. That does, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't make sense. That's not. There's no sound right reasoning in that. We had to gradually evolve from being aquatic beings and then putting yourself or evolving yourself in a less gradual water dense place. And then from there we grew limbs and became bipedal creatures and learned how to walk. So you went from the Okavango swamps and from there to the Kalahari deserts. Those are your Sans people. Now the master teacher YAANAN is saying that those Sans people broke up into 2 groups. You'll see it as Sans, you know that, and the Wadabi. And I know your hand is still there. I'm going to get to you in a minute. So your Sans people is the matriarchal line, the mother line, and the Wadabi people is the patriarchal line. So by the time they came out on land, millions of years have already passed. Y'all follow me? Everybody walking with me? And then from there, it goes from millions of years to thousands of years is where they started to migrate northward from South Africa up. And I'm going to go to the brother's question, the brother. Tun. Yes.
I was just going to ask, even prior to the tilt of the 23.5 degrees,
yes,
it was once at a 90 degree.
A 90 degree, yes.
And that was after that first incident that was not to a 23.5.
Yes.
And then later to a 24 degree.
Right, exactly. So, and that was a good point that you mentioned that because there's 3 books that Baba breaks that down in. Precession Change, The Lost Records of Time, and then the Nuwapian Ontologies of Time. Those 3 actual facts shows you that we had pyramids. So those pyramids were on grids, right? Grid lines, ley lines. So they had power grids that were electrifying or energizing these pyramids, and once the planet shifted from a 24 degree axis to a 23.5, they no longer became active because the energy shifted from one area to the next. Any questions on that? Now look.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
This was something I received by word from another brother, but it was said that Amun and Amuntat, Nunununtat, Kaktat, Ha and Hatat represented each pair represented a shift in the genetics of the species.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. Those 4 generations. Each generation is different.
What book can we find that in?
That's in the Black Book.
It's in the Black Book?
Yeah, that's in Sacred Records of Atumre. Okay. So when I was explaining about Amun and Amuntat, there's generations of beings that existed. And then you had Nun, then Kak, and then Ha. And it was a total of 800 years for each of them. You follow? Okay. Yes?
So, from my understanding, did the women evolve on land first?
They did, because they were the survivors. So if you go to Patarak, the formation, Baba says that the women were the ones that survived coming out of the waters, when the tsunami hit. The women who were the feminine mermaids, or in this case, aquatic beings, when they came out of the waters, they used to actually lay their eggs outside of themselves, as opposed to having the egg being cracked inside. You know, when women say that my water breaks, that's the amniotic sac, or the egg that's holding the fetus or the baby. But originally, it was born outside, the same way like a chicken lays an egg outside of its body, and then it hatches and cracks. That was the original way. But then it took millions of years for that process to start to reverse once you had more women mixing their DNA with men. Because originally, women gave birth without seminal fluids coming from the man or the male.
Right.
That's where Bob was talking about the asexual reproduction, and all of that was the process of how women were giving birth asexually to sets of twins. Follow? So that's all explained in Patarak, the formation, and that was also talked about in the sacred records of our turmeric. So if I'll read a little bit more so we can walk through it a little bit here. I see everybody's head going down. So let's go back a little bit here. So the master teacher says, and this is coming from the journey, he says here that the other group migrated north into and all over what is called Africa. That's this group here, the Wadabi group. The Wadabi group was the group that went north, went all over into Africa. So they stayed inside Africa and then later migrated west to the Americas. This is before the continental drift now. Now your Sans group, the mother Sans, or what they call Hadzabi group, this is the group that migrated north and went eastward. They went into Arabia, and then they went into India, Asia, and then moved all the way up north to Europe. So this is the group that went that direction and spread all over the world and became sub-races. So this is where Baba is saying that every race on the planet comes from our genetic markers, because the Sans people hold those genetic markers. They have the hair texture of the Negroids, right? They have the epicanthic fold of the Asians. They have the forehead crease of the Aborigines. They have the dimple chin of the Indians. So they share all of those genetic markers. So when you look at each race on the planet, you see that the Sans people share it. It's only the Nordic race or the Adamite race that doesn't have that in their genetic code. So when they talk about, the Darwin theory and about evolution, they taught it incorrectly. They were wrong, because they're saying that evolution is just random, when it wasn't. It was guided by extraterrestrial beings. This is what YAANAN is saying, that all of this was a process through extraterrestrial experiments. Yes?
So the sons, it was just all women. They didn't take men with them. There was no men.
It was women that were the survivors, but because women carried sets of twins, that's your males, your male and female. So the men were being born by way of the women who survived coming out of the waters. The males didn't.
So the ones that was the males that moved, did they take women with them?
Well, in this case, they did take women, but the reason why you can trace this is they trace it through the Y chromosome. So when they talk about the Sans people migrating all over the planet, they can trace it by that paternal line, because the Y chromosome doesn't change. So when you look at the Sans people, they have an unbroken Y DNA lineage. This is what Bob was talking about, the sacred masculine, and then you have the sacred feminine. The sacred feminine is spoken of in the Gospel of YAANAN, and the sacred masculine is talked about in another affirmation class that talks about these migrations and where the Sans people went. I hope that helped a little bit. So, any questions? I'll read a little bit more if y'all need. No questions so far? Okay.
I have a question. So, the Riskians touched down in the land at Egg Island. We know that the Anunnaki touched down in the Mesopotamian area. Where did the Natharu touch down?
And okay, so there was one in West Africa and one in East Africa. So what I'll do is I'll read it for you since I know a lot of the questions are coming from their migrations. So there's a part here, and I'll read it to everybody. You can find this on YouTube. It's an Alphamation class that was read by Nabab Ma'at and Rayay Tet. And it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was titled Sacred Masculine. So it says here, the migration out of Africa, the alien extraterrestrial visits and gene mixing. This is traced by the male Y chromosome marking only, which does not mix or change like the female X chromosome over time. It is how all humanoids migrated, and which aliens used their DNA to breed hybrid races from the original Sans people of South Africa. This is millions of years ago, on to thousands of years ago, on up until now. So positive blood types originally are Negroids. So you're Rh positive, that's our original bloodline. That's our original blood type. Then you have the negative blood types, which are originally Caucasoids from the aliens who mixed in. He says the interruption was when those who moved out of Africa, so when you're looking at this, the Sans people that moved out of Africa 440,000 years ago, they're the ones that went to Arabia first. So then they encountered other visitors that was not of the Natharu. Y'all follow me? Then you had 350,000 years ago on to Asia. They had other visitors that came and mixed in with their DNA. BABAH says here, aliens was behind all of this, thought to be God. So in the Bible, the Quran, and the Torah, everybody who thinks God is this omniscient or omnipresent deity that is creating all these things is incorrect. God is really an extraterrestrial, and it talks about this in the Bible in Job 9 verse 9, and Job 38 verse 31, when he talk about Orion, Octurus, right, Pleiades, and the chambers of the south, which is Sirius. So all of those star constellations, extraterrestrials came down and manipulated the DNA of these Sans people that was migrating into these different areas. Y'all walk with me. So then he says, and then from Central Asia upwards to Europe, you had 40,000 years ago to meet the aliens of the Pleiades star system in Scandinavia. All this took place while they were still melaninites, before mixing with the Pleiadians to become Nordic seeds of Europe. And then once the extraterrestrial aliens did genetic breeding and crossbreeding, these are the beings they bred with. So I'm going to erase this real quick. We got any...
You got it.
I'll just use this real quick. So you have your Pleiadians. Your Pleiadians are in North Europe. Let me know if y'all can see it. My handwriting.
It's clear.
So this is where you're saying the intersection.
This is where it all intersects. So you have your North Europe, and then you have your Nordics. Right? Then you have Andromedans. That's your Asia group. Then you have Syrians. Syrians is in West Africa. Beings from Orion, that's in East Africa. If y'all have any questions, just let me know. Then you have the Anunnaki, that's in Mesopotamia.
And right now we're just listing all of the interceptions of each extraterrestrial group?
That's what I was asking.
That's it.
Yes.
I said right now we're just listing the interception of each extraterrestrial group.
Yeah, this is each extraterrestrial group and where they came down.
Where they came down, does that represent also where they intercepted with the sands?
Yes. But I just want to make sure. I just want you all to see this chart real quick, right? Because I don't want to confuse you all here. So, millions of years ago, the sun's DNA was pure. In other words, there was no mixing. So it wasn't until 440,000 years ago, that's when they migrated into these areas. So when they went into Arabia, right, that's when they were encountered by beings like the Anunnaki in Mesopotamia, right? Then you have 350,000 years ago into Asia. You have these Andromedan, or these different groups here. So that's where it talks about how they were interrupted in their genetics by these different extraterrestrial groups. All right?
So
I think we were knocked out.
No, you're not that.
Tell me.
Was
Yes.
Anunnaki, was they Mennonite beings?
Yes. The master said that the Anunnaki were from Arcturus star system, and they had black nappy hair. But they're not our ancestors. They're a different genetic group. So a lot of people get that confused. A lot of our people who are the Anunnaki are not our ancestors. They're just another extraterrestrial group that mixed in with our DNA. All right, so that's the thing that we have to understand, is that they were part of a creation story with us, but they're not our ancestors. No.
They're not our people.
No, even though they're dark-skinned, nappy-haired, but they're not of our genetic group.
So, where are they from originally?
Originally, they were from Arcturus.
I'm not familiar with them.
Arcturus is a star system. Yeah, Arcturus is a star system.
So it's initially the Riskians intervened, well, with the Dolphin Project?
They were the first.
Yes, they were the first that started it off.
And then who was after? Can you break? So was it Anunnaki next? And
Well, really, just to kind of go back a little bit, when you read the Black Book, when you go to Sacred Records of Atumre, you have the Nun Project. The Nun Project is basically the seeding of the waters, right? Which is also compiled with the Nun, with the Dolphin Project of them seeding the dolphins into the waters, right? That's our ancestors. That's the Natharu that sent us down here. The Anunnaki don't come in until about 450,000 years ago. So that means that we were on the planet for millions of years without mixing with their DNA. So when you go back into the Bible, right, you go to Genesis 1 verse 1, it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. That has nothing to do with our ancestors. That's dealing with the Anunnaki. Because when it says in the beginning God, it was really talking about Elohim, which is a plural, which was dealing with a pluralization of deities, which were the Anunnaki that came down to the planet. It's just that in the Holy Tablets, the reason why they came down was to repair the planet after the crash. That's why Baba, when he was translating it, he said it's a reconstruction period. So if you have to reconstruct something, that means that something was damaged and it needed to be repaired. That was this solar system and the planet Earth after the crash of Nibiru. So the people who stayed in the Holy Tablets didn't stay and walk with the Master Teacher long enough to show that the Anunnaki weren't our ancestors. They were just a different group that mixed in with us and sped up our genetics through Enki. Enki was the one who sped up the genetics from what you call a Homo erectus being to a Homo sapien.
So did that mixture take place on Risk or here?
This mixture took place here. Yeah, this mixture took place here. In the migrations of the Sans people going into different areas.
Which one of these groups are the Natharu?
Well, when you say Natharu, you have here West Africa, East Africa. But Natharu is a title. I'm trying to make y'all understand this. Natharu is a title the same way Anunnaki is a title. So when you guys are trying to associate it in a way where it's like, okay, so can this being be a Nathar and not another? They're titles that deal with different extraterrestrial groups from specific star systems. So the Natharu we know specifically is from Sirius and Orion. But they have a lower rank than the Riskians. And then the Anunnaki have a lower rank than the Natharu. Y'all follow? So if you go back into an older book that the master teacher wrote called the Gold Book, he showed you 4 deities that was responsible for our creation. Do y'all remember it?
Yeah.
It was what? The Netiru, the Natharu, the Anunnaki, the Nomos, and the Elul. So when he was teaching us and walking us out of those different religious schools of thought, we went into Sumeria. So in Sumeria, he was explaining about the creation story related to the Anunnaki. Then when he took us into Egypt or Tamaray, he talked about the creation story dealing with the Natharu. But the Nomos and the Elul has not been explained yet. These are all 4 deities that was responsible for our creation.
So I thought the Riskians was a part of the mythology, so no.
They are, it's just that they are of a higher rank. In other words, the Riskians are like the providers of the whole entire universe. Like beings that are on a council, like within the Galactic Federation.
So
when
the
you
Most
think
High would always be a Riskian, because I know that's a title.
Yeah, well, the Most High is a religious term that deals with the rank of a being compared to others. So in other words, if you're the smartest person in the room, if you have the most right knowledge, right wisdom, and right understanding, you would be the Most High compared to other people that you'd be weighed against. It's just that in that school of Sumeria, Bob was explaining that the Most High was Anu, but he was the Most High of the Anunnaki. Equivalent to Ray would be the Most High of the Natharu. Y'all follow?
Yeah.
But this is just in ranking. Because we were seeing things from a religious perspective, because we're like, okay, so who do I pray? Do I pray to God or do I pray to the Most High? I'm going to pray to the Most High because that's a higher rank. But they still spookified it. And Bob was saying that Anu is not a spook, he's a real being. He's a real person. He's a physical being. It's just that religion has made us think that these are mythologies and spook and spirits. But Most High is a relative term that you can apply to anything. But he was just walking us through those schools all the way up to Papa'ut, the All. And that was another stage of our divinity.
So when you speak about YAANAN, YAANAN is risky,
Correct.
not Natharu per se.
He can have that title as well. You see, it's an overseer. Natharu is, if you say Nathor is to oversee. So if you are overseeing something, you fit that title. You have that rank. If you've graduated in your understanding and spiritual development to that rank.
Are there any of the other groups that, like Draconians, Andromedans, Pleiadians, that may be either, well, may be considered Natharu?
I haven't seen anything about that. No.
That's why he was called triangle justice.
Yeah. When you look at, that's a good point. If you go to the proof, the master said that he's a triune being. So you have Nin Gish Zita, which is the Sumerian deity, right? That's the Anunnaki part. Then you have Tuhuti. That's the Nathar or Netir part. And then you have YAANAN, which is the Riskian part. Those triad of beings are within YAANAN, or within the flesh of Dr. Malachi Ziyor. Y'all follow? So they say Trismegistus, 3 times great. These are different entities speaking to him at different times according to people's questions.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so the Riskians, are they more extraterrestrial, as in the Natharu being etheric? How does that work?
No. When you say extraterrestrial, right?
Yeah,
Extraterrestrial is just defined as anything that's outside of Earth.
Right.
A meteorite could be extraterrestrial.
Right.
Right? A comet could be extraterrestrial. Bacteria coming out of space and coming into Earth's plane is an extraterrestrial. You follow? When you define it by that.
Right.
The master said this in the sacred records of Atumre, that Riskians, anything that's a Riskian is a being that lives on risk.
Right.
The same way anything that lives on earth is an earthling.
Right.
But when people think about an earthling, they say, well, humans are earthlings. But no, the lion is an earthling.
Sure.
Yeah, follow? A horse is an earthling.
That's right.
A wolf is an earthling. A bear is an earthling. So they're all natives to the planet.
Right.
But when you say something that is a Riskian, anything that's native or living or residing there would be a Riskian, yes.
So there is a constellation star system where the Riskians reside.
Yes.
Okay, now compare that to the Natharu. The
Mhm.
Natharu, it's not a constellation, it's not a star system. It's more or less a...
Okay, well, let me go in this direction, right?
Okay.
When you go into the Black Book,
Right.
in the Sacred Records, right, in the introduction, Baba talked about how they had to evacuate, they had to leave Risk because it was about to explode due to, right,
Sun.
due to the bomb,
Right.
due to the plutonium bomb that blew up and the suns was coming in, the rays
Right.
of the sun was killing the people there because their ozone layer was depleted,
Correct.
right? So the same way you have a lieutenant, right? You have a captain, you have a sergeant, you have all these different ranks
Right.
where people fit into these positions.
Okay.
It's the same thing when you say Riskian or Nathar or Anunnaki.
Okay.
A ranking system amongst deities
Okay.
according to their knowledge, according to their wisdom, according to their governance, right? So when you think about, you have an earth family, right? Your immediate family is your mother and father going all the way back, right? 30 generations. But there's also a galactic family that human beings have been disconnected to because religion has cut them off and has mythologized tuning into natural nature and tuning into your ancestral realm. So if you tune into your ancestral realm, you get to not only connect, but also communicate with higher beings that are part of your bloodline. They just exist in a soul form, in an etheric form.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
so Riskians are just beings that are in an Etherian form that can choose to materialize,
Right.
but they're so advanced in their state that they don't need a physical body. They live completely from the etheric realm, from the ethers.
Right.
So that's where Baba, when you go to, Baba was explaining this in Intelligent Design. His goal was to transform us from a physical being into an Etherian.
Right.
That's turning yourself inside out and outside in. Yes.
So which one of those beings lived inside the earth? I know it was like the Taros, the Daros, and which one?
Well, you're naming them.
No, I'm saying which.
None of these beings, they're all pretty much on the surface.
Oh, okay.
When Bob was talking about, I mean, as far as Riskians, there were Riskians that was underneath the earth, but they was considered to be what you call the Dunakial tribes. The Teros, Deros, the Duanis. You had a lot of different beings that lived underground and were connected to some of these extraterrestrials that came down. Mm-hmm. But they were considered to be hybrids in this case. Mm-hmm. The Sunanan, Teros, yeah, exactly.
So,
Yes.
How would you consider that? I guess that's the all.
Yes.
So would that be like the intelligence of existence?
Not necessarily intelligence of existence. The all is, which means that you are a part of it. You are part of the all. So you are the all in all. So you never separate yourself from deity. This is where Baba was saying that in you understanding or comprehending the existence of Pa'ut, you are stepping in degrees of divinity toward the bosom of the all. You follow? So there's a class called, it was a 99Z festival where Baba was explaining to people that if you say the all, then you're making it a thing. It's like you're speaking of it outside of yourself. If you say all, then you really don't know what it is. You're supposed to get to the point of removing the definite article and just say all, and that's when you are it as a part of it. And there is no separation. So when we start our chants, what we say, begin all praise and thinking as a part of the all. So you don't separate yourself from deity. You are the deity. You are at the center of your own universe. You are in control. You are the God of your own universe. So you are responsible for anything that happens to you and what happens from you. Yes.
At any point, did the Riskians intercept or breed with sand?
Okay, I'm not necessarily understanding what you mean.
Like, did they breed with them? Or do we have Riskian genetics as a result of some kind of interception between them and the sand?
Yes, but they sent us here. So in other words, if your great-great-great-great-grandfather sent you here, he sent you here with his genetics inside. You see what I'm saying? So when you look back, that's why I say, go back to the class called Who and What Are You? And the master was saying that they sent us down here from different galaxies. That's why he said, though, our whole concept of God and religion is wrong. He said, we don't even know what we're talking about. He's saying that these beings, the Riskians or the Natharu, sent you down here with their genetics.
Yeah.
How do you know that? The HAR1 gene. The HAR1 gene has all of the characteristics of these extraterrestrials that you're talking about. They just call it the human accelerated region. But that gene holds their image and likeness inside of your genetic makeup. So you're in the image of the Natharu, but you're in the likeness of the Riskian. So the Riskians have a peaceful nature. Black people are naturally peaceful people. It's only when you take us out of our character that we start to become violent. But as a race of people, we've been naturally peaceful. So that's you being in the likeness of the Riskian or being a provider, because we provided for all. But the Natharu is the image that you see in Egypt when you look at the hieroglyphics, when you look at the artwork, when you look at the talismans, when you look at Tahuti or Sekhmetet or Shu or Geb. Now you're seeing your ancestors in their image and what they were at their highest peak on the planet when they built pyramids. Yes?
So that the HAR1 gene that you're talking about right there, that ties that proves the existence of the extraterrestrials, does that tie into the 223 chromosomes that's not of...
It does, because scientists today can't explain what came first. Was it DNA or proteins? They can't explain it. They don't know which came first. It's like saying, which came first, the chicken or the egg. DNA needs proteins in order to build the instructions that's inside of you, right? The protein is like, okay, these are the instructions, and the DNA is the blueprint. So you got to have the blueprint and instructions together, correct? But they can't explain what came first. And then the next part is who orchestrated it, who put it together. So the master's saying that DNA and RNA already came to the planet at an advanced stage. It didn't develop here. It already came to the planet at an advanced stage and then grew. Yes?
Okay, so if, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if only the Dolphin Project had happened, no extraterrestrials intervened, would we still have evolved to where we are now? Was that already encoded, or was that only after the mixing in with the tailless apes and all these types of things? Well, so it was already encoded for us to eventually become land.
It was already programmed for us to evolve from the waters onto land and to migrate. Yes. Yeah. That was their project. The only thing is, in between that, how many of y'all remember, okay, in the Black Book it talks about how you had the extinction of the dinosaurs. The master said that the reason why the dinosaurs were killed off is because they went from the red zone to the green zone. They went from Zupu to Nupu. They broke the force field or the wall that separated carnivorous creatures and herbivores or herbivorous creatures. And when they came onto our side, they started eating the Sans people. And that's why they sent the meteorite down to destroy them. You follow? So that was messing up with the master plan, because the plan was for all different humanoids or human beings to evolve into deityship. But then you also had hybrids, and you had bad or failed experiments of beings that existed on the planet. So we have to take that into consideration that these extraterrestrials were scientists that made mistakes. They made mistakes in the genes. And that's why you have people that suffer from hirsutism. Right? That's the reason why you have people that have leprosy. That's the reason why you have beings that have all these different conditions of conjoined twins, or all these different ailments and sicknesses were just scientific experiments that went wrong. Yes.
All right. Now, what you just go back to what you just touched on just a minute ago, just to movie related, so to speak.
I know,
right? When you had Star Wars and you had the Jedi, right?
Yes.
And these Jedi was from all different galaxies. It wasn't just one place.
Right.
No. So saying that to say, at the point in time that I think it was what Sirius C was about to explode or whatnot, and which was the result of the Dolphin, or should I say the cause of the Dolphin Project?
Well, it was the cause of them sending us from one place to another. Right? It's like, for instance, you have, okay, if your house is burning up, your house is about to explode, you want to evacuate everybody out the building, right?
Right.
So that's the same thing that he did on Sirius C. They saw that sun was burning out. They saw all the planets that was rotating around it was going to be affected by that explosion. So then they did an evacuation.
Right. And that leads me to the question.
Yes.
So Earth wasn't the only place that they transported their DNA.
It's not the only place, but it was an eventual place where we ended up.
Absolutely.
And so that's where Bob was saying that Ptah was the deity that sent us down here. So we have his genetics inside of our DNA. It's just that it has to be activated by the master teacher when you get through all the different chaos and the different genetics that's inside of our body. You're talking about different ancestors speaking inside of our heads. So that's why people don't resonate with the doctrine like that, because they have all these different spirits that are speaking to them when it comes down to having a genetic explosion. They're reading the books, and that sound right reasoning, the divinity that's inside them is saying this is the truth, but then they have those spirits that's fighting against it. And what Bible was talking about, that's the ignorance versus the knowledge. Tour. So I'll read that one part, because when Baba said, after 76 trillion years of existence, he said the oldest of the three suns, Sirius C, was burning out, as all suns do. So they know, as these extraterrestrial beings, they know when suns are about to explode and what's going to happen, because they've seen it before happen over and over and over. So when you say, okay, what's a fact? A fact is something that's what? Measurable and repeatable. So suns are born, they live, and then they die out. That's a measurable and repeatable thing. Even the sun that's 93 million miles away is what? It's going to eventually burn out. Okay, so what's going to happen to all the people on the planet then? Right? Unless you have some type of connection to different galactical families that would come down and save you and take you out of here, then you would just go along with the explosion, correct? So then he says here that they knew that all those who resided on the 8 planets have to be evacuated. So they were relocated to other systems like Sirius A and Sirius B. Y'all follow? Then from there they were sent to Orion, but in Orion they stayed there for thousands of years. And then from Orion they came all the way down to Earth. But we're talking about timelines of different years of extraterrestrial migrations. So if we said this 30 years ago, they would look at us like, man, this sounds crazy. They would look at it like it's being taboo. Now that the government is saying, no, we have declassified files. We got Project Paperclip. We got Project Blue Book, which are confirming the existence of extraterrestrials that they've been trying to keep from the public, because they know that that's going to destroy the religious institutions that keep people's minds under a certain spell. Any questions on that? Or any rereads from the journey?
When Sirius B was drained of its energy to become dwarf, like dwarf.
Sirius C, yeah.
Well, Sirius C was before. That was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually Sirius B became a primary star that was unable to be seen. If I'm correct.
Well,
according to the tablets, the Bureau had drained it.
On its migration.
Yes.
Okay, on its travels.
How does that fit in the timeline?
Well, the timeline goes back trillions of years of existence. So the timeline in the Bureau was in billions. And again, it deals with what calendar are you going by? Are you going by the Sumerian calendar, or are you going by the Egyptian calendar? Are you going by the Dentut, or are you going by the zodiac? So they're just in the timeline that the master's saying this predates Nibiru's travels. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so is Nibiru, is that Anunnaki or is that Riskin?
That's Anunnaki. So when you say Nibiru, right, the equivalent to Nibiru would be the Bennu craft in Egypt. All right, so you have like the Benu is like your mother craft, same way Nibiru is the mother craft. Then you have smaller crafts that come out. That would be your Shams. The Shams coming out of Nibiru. But in this case, the Hinus would be the equivalent for the Shams coming out of the Bennu. So there's always a Sumerian and Egyptian equivalent when you talk about extraterrestrial crafts that are moving back and forth. And they also had crystal cities as well. Any other questions so far? Y'all look tired out here. Yes. It's a little bit too much arcade.
Right on point.
All right.
Okay, quick question. Because you mentioned started seeing certain different planets in different galaxies.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know which, like, whether it was male, female, all or all male, which one was on each planet, and then what made it become all that or both?
Okay, the master said in Patarak Atlantis that Sirius was dominated by the feminine. The feminine ruled Sirius. And he said that the masculine were the ones that were rulers of Orion. But the way it worked is that males were born on Sirius and then shipped or exiled to Orion.
So they wasn't allowed to stay on Sirius?
They weren't allowed
for that
to.
reason?
Yes. And so when you go back to an earlier class called Human Reptile, that's when the master was saying that Sirius is a predominantly water planet. And how he was talking about how the word dolphin means womb. So it's saying that the dolphin was the original womb of ourselves, of our life, before that was shifted to the feminine as being the carriers of the cells. So it went from a transformation from in vitro fertilization, when you're sticking the cell inside of an animal and then shipping it somewhere off, and then waiting it to grow, and for the sirens or other beings to grow to a certain state so that they can be able to also house the eggs as well. But it was experiments that was done to make the feminine be carriers by way of that mitochondrial DNA. That's talked about in the Sacred Wisdom of Tahuti.
Yes.
So that just to kind of go where you were talking about as far as Sirius and Orion. There's another class, but it was in the class of, it was dealing with the degree of Islam. It's called Angelic Descendants on Earth, if y'all heard that. Mm-hmm. And Bob was saying that there's never been a female incarnate on Earth, but there are other female deities that govern or are dominant in other galaxies in which they rule.
So with that being said, because nobody acknowledged female on Earth, so part to say, but they do exist, but because they'll kill us off for certain things, you have to go into hiding. So 9 out of 10, most of the men were actually females, but females pretending to be a woman, but they was actually a female.
Originally, we were hermaphrodites and hermaphrodites, where we had both genders, and then those genders multiplied into different forms. So you had like, okay, the master was saying how you have XXY and then YYX and XYX, all these were different chromosomal forms of us as being like hermaphrodite and hermaphrodite. And then when they split, then you had either male and then female, or people being born with a male spirit and a female body and vice versa.
Yes. With that being said, so when you have a person like now that exists like that, and their parents choose to either make them one way or the other, but then when they come into realization that that's how they are, how do you explain to them, like when you say to them it's okay and there's nothing wrong with being born like that, because that did exist back then?
Yeah.
Where is the book that you can refer them to actually give it to them so they don't be like, oh, feeling left out?
Well, I would say, an actual fact, Tahuti's vision. In Tahuti's vision, it explains that, and also in Gateways and the Guardians, the master's talking about that. Because he was saying how, if you have a person that leans to a certain sexuality, you're only going to see it at the age of 9. That's when that whatever their sexual orientation is, that's when it shows up. That's where it shows up in the genetics. You'll see that in gateways and the guardians. So but it depends again on the mother and her emotional state of mind when she's pregnant. Because if she is stressed out, if she's going through some type of trauma while she's pregnant, then she can change her hormones at that time during her pregnancy and either secrete more testosterone or more estrogen, which will change the nature of the child.
But if the child is born with both, and that's what makes them hermaphrodite, correct?
No.
Well,
That's a
so
deformity.
what makes them, that's a what?
A deformity. That's what the master was saying that they define, right, in the medical world. In the medical world, they say hermaphrodite or hermaphrodite is a person born with both parts.
Okay.
That's not what we teach. He's saying that that's a deformity. He's saying that hermaphrodite and hermaphrodite is simply a male, biologically male in all of his parts, but feminine in his spirit, in his mind. And then vice versa, with a hermaphrodite is a woman totally feminine, female in body, but she's masculine in her spirit, which would make her a dual gender, meaning that they both resonate on dual frequencies. So they're vibrating in the physical world and the spiritual world on the masculine tone and the feminine tone, whereas normally everybody just vibrates on one tone according to their gender. So there's a difference. So when Baba was explaining for us to learn more about music, when you deal with music theory, you're going to understand how chords work. So if you, for instance, you're the mother, he's the father, then you got the child. So the mother would be born musically on a sharp. The father's on the flat, and then the child is born on a major. And then they would create a triad of chords as a triad of deities from parents to child. So the master is saying that all of our DNA, your genetic makeup, is programmed musically. It's an orchestration, musically as well as biologically. So you know how you walk into a room and say, I don't really vibe with these people? You don't vibe because you don't resonate. You don't, the frequencies, the energy that's in the room, you're not attuned to it. You're not really feeling it. Or something different than how you usually vibe or resonate with. It's a thing that we say naturally. But when you apply that to genetics, that's when Baba was saying you could be compatible with one person or incompatible with another because your DNA is not the same. You don't resonate the same way with the other person.
So let me ask you. You just said when a child is 9 years old, they already know who their sexuality, who they're attracted to, male or female. Is that what you just said?
Yes, it takes at the age of 9. Remember, our race is 9 ether beings. So our matrix, everything in our matrix deals with the cycles of 9. Okay. So at the age of 9 is when you would know the real sexual gender or orientation of your child. So when you go back in the previous books like Purity, Health, and Neatness, Bible is saying that we have to protect our children up to the age of 7 because that's the age where they get their imagination. And whether you're going to breed a child that's going to be disagreeable or a child that's going to be agreeable. But by the age of 9 is when whatever they are in terms of their spirit and orientation, whether they like men, whether they like women, or bisexual, or all the other different various degrees of it.
What about you have the ability at older than 9 to change your sexuality?
When you say change it, what do you mean by that?
If you having, how do you know if you have at 9 that you are sexually attracted to the same sex? Say if you look at a woman, looks at a woman on TV and likes how she looks, but then when you 13, you have a desire just to be with men.
Well, it depends on what's being programmed because television and your diet also plays into what you are attracted to. Because all that deals with the brain.
Right. I agree.
So I'll read a couple of parts here just to kind of go into it real quick. Baba said homosexuality and lesbianism deals with genetics. He says, if a woman is pregnant, make sure she is peaceful.
Right.
The first couple of months in pregnancy are very crucial. It says trauma is what causes confusion in the DNA. If a woman is traumatic or scared in her first months, and then the thought will decide to make the child a male, trauma, stress, and being scared will make her produce more estrogen. So the baby will be born with more female tendencies. If it's a female baby with the trauma and being scared, then the baby may become a lipstick lesbian. If the mother is trying to be more masculine in the first part of the pregnancy, and she is carrying a female child, she will produce a masculine female. If it's a male child she's carrying, it would be the opposite, meaning he would look masculine, but he would be gay. So there's a difference between somebody being gay and having female tendencies. That's what you got to understand, the nuance between these things.
Right.
Because there's 32 degrees of homosexuality when you deal with all these different various forms of it. So Baba is saying that it's all in your genetics. So the baby is physically being shaped, molded, formed inside of the body, right, of the woman. But what she does affects what the child is going to end up as once it gets onto this side. Then once it gets on this side, that's why I said you have to listen to the class called Gateways and the Guardians. You'll have to know the difference between a hormone sexual and a homosexual. That's where Bob was explaining that homo just means the same, right? A homosexual is a person who is really a heterosexual being, a person attracted to the opposite gender. But if that person then mixes their DNA with the same gender, then they transform to a hormone sexual, because the genetic kiss is now a hormone exchange, which becomes a mental change in the body.
So, I have a friend, one of my close friends in California.
You got a question?
I'm gonna ask him. Yeah,
oh, wait a minute. You got a friend? I'm going to go out on so many different places.
That's right.
I know in the vortex of a couple of these things.
Get it right.
You got a question about this friend before we go over there?
Yeah. So we was talking one time, we out, and she was just like, her and her best friend, she was like, they was talking about, would you ever be with a woman? And my friend said, well, I don't know. She said, I guess they could go, we all dancing here. I guess they could touch me up here, but not down there. And I'm just looking at her like, and she's thinking about it. So she has the tendencies to be with women, but she never been with a woman. So what do you consider her?
But the thing is that, again, when you go to Tahuti's fishing, there's many different types. That's the main thing that Bob is explaining. It gets very complex when you start breaking down on what a person is attracted to, male or female, because there's different forms of it. But the master teacher is explaining that people can get misunderstood for being oversexed when they're really a being that vibrates on dual frequencies, meaning that it could be a hermaphrodite or hermaphrodite. Because remember, if you vibrate on both genders, masculine and feminine, then also your sexuality must be heightened as well. Y'all follow? And they get mistaken to being oversexed people. Now, there are people who are nymphomaniacs, who are oversexed, and they don't have anything to do with being a hermaphrodite, hermaphrodite, or a gatekeeper, or anything like that. So this is where it ties into the whole LGBTQ community, where you have people that are trying to justify having sex with multiple different people, right? But they're disguising it in a different type of way. But the doctrine explains clearly, and I'll read it to you. He says here that the word homo is from homogeneous, which means the same nature. That means two males of the same nature, the exact same in nature. Nature means the quality of anything or life force. So then he says here that these are two males who think and act as well, feel the same in all ways, including sexuality. So in fact, homosexual would be two heterosexual males or straight males. And as soon as they have any form of sexual contact, they become not homosexuals, but hormone sexuals. And what this means is, when you have two males that are together that still dress like men, and they're still male that wants to be a female or transgender into a female, you have people who are, let me go back a little bit, because he says, if you have two males that are together and still dress like men, it doesn't mean that they want to be a female. There's men that want to be a female, and you have that type. You have those that don't want to be a female, but they're still gay.
At least they want to dress like one, but they don't want to change their age.
Yes. So he says that here, once they exchange, that's when the sexual contact becomes a hormone contact. This is something that changes their hormones based off of them mixing their DNA. Yes.
So I'm gonna say, so I have.
Well, before you go there, do you have a question? Before we go there, 'cause I know this opens up the vortex for a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a question.
Okay, what's the question?
So I had a friend I used to work with. He was a young gay guy, and he was really like, you know, he knew, he said it wasn't natural. He told me it was a mental disease. So he told me, and he said if his father been a while, so I asked if his father been a while, he probably wouldn't be gay. And I don't think that's the reason. You think that's the reason? Like if his father.
I can't speak on that because again, you're dealing with people who have either been traumatized. There's so many different layers to why people are attracted to who they're attracted to. That's when you have to go into people's personal lives and find out what happened to them. And it's a whole therapy session. But using the doctrine is giving the clarity as far as why people act the way they act and what's the cause and effect of it. But to go into why a person is this way, you can't really answer those questions because that becomes anecdotal. Yes.
Quick question. A while back when Baba explained, you have the feminine gay of a masculine, you have the masculine gay, and there was a third one. What was that one?
I'm not necessarily sure.
Okay.
There was.
He was explaining different parts. Even though you're a man and you say you that way, but you're this way, but you want to be the female, but you don't want to be like how you was explaining.
Oh yeah.
But he was explaining there one, two, and there was a third one. If you can see.
I had to find that because I know what you're talking about,
Yes.
but I had to find that real quick, and then I'll read it. I'll read it for everyone. But two, that's dealing with the two. Baba's talking about two different gay types.
So quick question, because I know when he said when the female and the female, if you do that, you cancel out yourself, right?
Yes.
So I never heard him say when a man and man, they cancel out themselves. What do he say? How does that work?
Well, originally, when you had, in ancient times, before the Abrahamic religions, because remember the Abrahamic religions shun and go against the whole homosexuality and the different genders and what people, are attracted to. Before that, in ancient times, if you just had a man that had a feminine spirit, you would pair that man with a feminine who had a masculine spirit to balance it out. So it's both male and female, but both of their genders spiritually are also aligned with each other. So it wasn't like you just have a female with another female or a male with another male. We didn't do it. It wasn't like that.
No, he said it will cancel you.
Yes, that's a feminine mixed with other feminine.
It will cancel.
That's in the genetic kiss. Yeah, that's true. And who has got female or male?
If the man mixed with the man, doesn't that cancel him too? It cancels them?
It only cancels because the Y chromosome rewrites the DNA.
I didn't know it to be a cancel. I know that to be the dominant gene will take over.
Yes.
Whoever's more dominant in the genetics,
right.
Between the male or the female will take over.
Absolutely. That's the same. Yes, absolutely. And just to give you a reference, in ancient science of speech, it talks about that. People who have, whether it's a masculine or a feminine, if they mix their DNA, let's say if it's a woman, I'll just give this direction. If it's a woman who mixes her DNA with a lot of men, then she takes in more Y chromosomes, which would make her more masculine.
Right.
Because now she would be carrying all of this Y DNA that changes who she is. And then on the opposite side of the masculine, it's a little bit different because the Y chromosome rewrites the DNA of the X.
Why is that the case?
It's the case because the Y chromosome doesn't change. So when Baba was explaining that it was in the natural nature for men to be or to have other women, it's because natural nature designed it that way. So you have other parts to attraction when it comes down to whether someone's intellectually attracted or someone is physically attracted. And when you go back to that class, it's a class called, I think it's Who Were There After Dinosaurs, or I forget what it is, Dinosaurs and Evolution. But the master was saying, when it came down to couples, you didn't just go ahead and just pick your mate. You had to be amongst fertility deities. And then you had to do certain rituals to find out if y'all were genetically compatible. And then after that, you would mate. So it was always genetics first and then love second. Right. It wasn't love first and then genetics second.
Right.
Because that's, you see how it's been backwards?
Yeah.
So because people are doing it based off of lust now, now it's like whoever I'm attracted to, they go ahead and mix their DNA, but they don't know what that person or who that person is. They don't know what's going on inside of them. They don't know if that person's a killer. They don't know if that person has a disease. They don't know if they don't know what's the person's mentality. But they're doing everything off of attraction. You follow? So that's why it gets very complicated, because for 6,000 years, we've been programmed to think like the Adamites. You follow?
Yeah.
Any questions? Everybody good? Everybody satisfied?
When you say natural nature design it that way,
I got a lot of questions, but I ain't gonna let me start you.
natural nature.
Natural nature it deals with your matrix. What you are in your cells and your atoms is your natural nature. What you vibrate as, all the way down to your DNA. That's your natural matrix, but you can alter it according to who you mix your DNA with. So let's say, and I'll just give a musical example. Let's say you vibrate in the key of F. Now you mix your DNA with a feminine that vibrates in the key of D. It would change your resonance, because you're now taking on a different tone by taking in her genetics. See, genetics is not just physical. It's not just a physical biology of cells coming together and mixing saliva. You also taking in that person's spirit, and you also taking in that person's genetic tone. That's why he was saying that certain people, after a certain point in time, they don't get along with each other, because they may belong to different tribes. They used to war with each other in their generations, or they're not genetically they're genetically incompatible, which means that after a certain while, whether it's 3 weeks, 3 months, after an argument or a fight, they break up and they go their separate ways. Or the next time they come back and make up with each other. And he said all of that is dealing with their ancestors inside. That deals with your genetics, or the voices inside. Yes?
What does Dr. York say about transgenders? When you do that procedure, what happens to you? Like,
well, again, the master said that your matrix is what you vibrate as, right? So if you got XY chromosomes, you vibrating as a male, right?
Right.
You can't change your gender. This I understand, right? You can't change your gender. So what you are is the matrix of who you are. If you XY chromosome, you're a male. If you XX chromosome, you're a female. Now what you do to your body is something different. If you cut yourself up, if you change yourself up, it doesn't change the matrix of who you are. All you did was a physical transformation. You didn't change your gender, though.
why?
Because what you're born as is what you're born as. So what happens is, if they add estrogen or different hormones to the body, then what happens is the body internally starts to go crazy.
I know you have to take medicine for the rest of your life to keep your fake vagina open.
Yeah, they have all these different surgeries, but when you think about it, the matrix is already showing you what they are.
We're going to
have
to edit this. Yes.
Okay. When it was on Series C, right? And then when they came and they took the genetics, and you have them, they moved over to Orion. Now, at one point in time, the sacred feminine and the masculine were together on that one planet without having to be separated. Is that correct?
Okay, let me go back a little bit, because I'm a little bit confused. You're saying Sirius and
No,
Orion.
Sirius,
I'm
when they went to getting ready before they evacuated Sirius C, because it was going to. So the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine were on the same in Sirius C at the same time, or in sharing the same planet.
You had both males and females, but males again, because when you're dealing with Sirius C, you had both males and females that were transported to different areas, right? You'll find that in the 33 Commandments of the Sabians. However, the Master explained how the feminine that were on Sirius were the ones that gave birth to the males and exiled them, sent them to Orion. This part where BABAH is explaining is he's talking about 8 planets that was in that solar system, and then all of those people, all of those beings were sent to other planets because of Sirius C burning out. So you have to kind of take that which is from the journey, and then go to actual fact number 18. And he was saying that when Sirius C was burning out also, that you either had beings that were elevating to higher levels, meaning they were transforming into Etherians, transforming into spiritual beings. They left the body. And then you had those that still stuck to the physical material world of that environment that was there in Sirius. The same way a person is still stuck to physical pleasures, lust, food, greed here on earth, he said that would be the same fate. The same fate that would happen to them on Sirius would happen to people here on earth and be left behind.
Why were the males exiled from Sirius?
He never explained why.
How did they
He didn't,
survive?
say it again?
How did they survive?
Who?
Right? The males.
When you say males, what do you mean?
So the males are exiled to
Like shipped off.
shipped off.
Yes.
Right, but we know the females, I guess, can procreate.
Mhm.
How did the males?
As far as I don't know
Yeah, so how
that.
did they? So they just kept shipping them off as they.
That's all the master gave to us.
You need to
Okay.
answer a
Yeah, he didn't really get. He didn't go into it any more than that. Yes.
So Ryan must have been a very, 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 very peaceful place.
I mean, Cyrus C was very peaceful because we had to keep shipping y'all off.
Why Sirius couldn't be peaceful?
Thank you, that's what I'm saying. It was peaceful because we kept shipping them off, right?
That's a good one.
So peaceful.
Why did y'all got shipped off?
So tranquil, huh?
That's what I said. Why would you ship
I have no
off?
comment.
Okay, quick question, comment. Since he want to go there, and that brother asked that question, Cyrus C, he said, did the woman and did the male live on Cyrus C? But you keep saying that it was a female planet, correct?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So since it was a female planet, and you just said that means male really didn't exist on that planet.
Yes.
But yet you said
But in
the
that star
females
system.
gave birth to a male, correct?
Correct.
So explain to them, how was the female able to give birth to the male child when there was no males there? What do the female have that we didn't need them to have confusion? There you go. Answer that question for him. That's why we was peaceful.
Now, see,
And you can help that brother right there and
Let's
explain
not
that
bring it
part.
into a whole gender war.
So that's what he's
Like
trying
a
to
story
ask
shown with
you.
it.
He's asking you why y'all wasn't on our planet, and how did we have children without y'all being on our planet? That's
Well,
what he
the
wanted
biggest
to
the
know.
biggest thing is that when you say man and female, or man and woman, male and female, it didn't work that way.
I got that perfectly, but
Because he was saying that we were hermaphrodites and hermaphrodites. So you had a different chromosomes. So, okay, for instance, the male that you see on this planet is not the same. Because when you're talking about chromosomes, if you go to who's God, female or male, Baba said the original Nathar didn't have broken Y chromosomes.
no gender.
No, they didn't have a broken Y. You can go to who is God, female or male, and you'll see that he said that the Y chromosome wasn't defected in the males of the Nathar.
So what it made it defected now? Why did they?
It was
become-
defected because it was an experiment that was done.
But why? Why? They
To
got
become service.
They got defected. Did
Who?
the female become defected also?
No. Okay, I don't want you to confuse it. When we say hermaphrodites and hermaphrodites, you're talking about something that's a different genetic. You're talking about XYY or YYX. Now, is that the same as XX? No.
No. It's not.
Okay, so that's a different type of woman. And there will be a different type of man.
Right.
And so those different beings lived on Sirius and Orion.
See,
That's not the same as the man and woman that you're seeing on this planet. That's all I was saying. So there's different
I
forms of
understand.
it. You see what I'm saying?
I understand
Okay.
that point.
All right.
But get to the point when you said if Cyrus C was an all-female planet.
That's
right?
not what was said.
I'm asking. He said male got sent away.
No, I don't want y'all to confuse it.
Explain
Sirius is composed of three.
three different
Sirius
types
A,
of beings.
Sirius B, and Sirius C.
So A, B, and C. Which one belong to each?
It wasn't explained. When you go to Patadak Atlantis, did you read it? The first introduction of Atlantis.
Okay.
I'm asking you,
I
did
haven't
you read
read
it?
that book yet. So
Okay, so I would say
explain.
go back to Patadak Atlantis, where Bob is explaining about Sirius and Orion. He doesn't state which one it is. He doesn't say Sirius A. He doesn't say Sirius B. He doesn't say Sirius C. He says Sirius as in star system, as a whole.
So in Sirius A, you have a B and you have a C.
Which Baba is explaining now more in detail. Okay, I'm gonna go to this brother then.
Yeah, I got a question about this site right here.
Oh, well, before you go ahead, it's all good. Zach, you can sit on your chair. You don't have to show it to me.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you was familiar with it or not, but it's a brother that's saying that I don't know that he's supposed to be tied in to the master teacher, but he's teaching about like the indigenous status.
I don't know. I don't know who that brother is.
But he prefers it. He calls himself the emperor.
Nah, I don't know.
He's who? What you call yourself?
The emperor.
Nah.
Yes. All right, so basically,
That's not my boy.
Oh, hold up, y'all.
So basically, what's happening is the masculine line would be more like Uncle Anton, you know, because he was a hermaphrodite,
Yes.
and his wife was a she-maphrodite. So those beings were. That's how the masculine and feminine would look, similar to what
that's
they
a good
were.
example.
Okay,
Exactly. That's a good example.
okay, all right.
Yeah, that's a good example as far as gatekeepers or hermaphrodites and hermaphrodites. Yes. Mm-hmm.
We have to remember the Ethereum to physical transition was still something they were capable of. So they would
Yes.
go back and forth.
But there's no etheric gender.
Yeah,
Right.
You know, so it's like whatever you are in the physical, whether you're masculine, feminine, or if you're dual, then you have that duality inside of you. The master is saying that from that original hermaphrodites and hermaphrodites, you had different forms of it that became your male bodies with female spirits and vice versa, to people who have different sexual orientations. All right? Everybody good?
I'm good now.
All right, well, Taukum Moisard for this question and answer class. Now feel my look, and we'll see you next week.
For the look. Appreciate you. For the look. Sorry. You enjoyed the class. Well born.